Welcome to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. We are a community newspaper based in Midcoast, Maine, and we provide the most comprehensive, in-depth coverage available anywhere of the 18 towns and one plantation that makes up Lincoln County. My name is Johnathan Riley, and I'm a reporter here at the Lincoln County News.
And I'm Molly Rains. I'm also a reporter here. Today we're going to hear from Maia Zewert, our editor-in-chief, and our in-house basketball expert, Lucas McNelly, and sports reporter Michael LeBel to talk about high school basketball. But first, we will go over the front page headlines from our February 6th edition.
Yeah, this week we had the unfortunate passing of Abby Roberts, a former Lincoln County News editor, for 20 years, from 1973 to 1993. Roberts, 94, died at her home in Nobleboro on February 2nd after a period of declining health. I didn't know Abby, but Sherwood worked with her, and Maia also worked with her. And from what I gather, in the way that Sherwood speaks about her and wrote about her in this week's editorial, it seems as though that in addition to being a pioneer as a woman in the field of news media, she was also just incredibly kind, and her lasting legacy will be the kindness and community first thinking that she was had come to be known for. And I think we kind of embody still here at the Lincoln County News. We definitely, you can see it in our articles. You know, we just are always about the community.
Yeah, I think that's a Roberts family commonality, and maybe Abby was a big part of, promoting that in their family. And we have our cartoonist, Glenn Chadbourne, is the only person who's still on the LCN staff, not in the Roberts family, who worked with her. And Sherwood interviewed him about Abby, and he said she was a sweet lady and a pioneer in her field. There weren't many women working in journalism at the time. She ran a tight ship and was really to be admired.
Those are heartfelt words from Glenn Chadbourne. When she and her husband, Sam, were entered into the Maine Press Association Hall of Fame in 2002, which in 2022, I'm butchering the timing of that a little bit, but
I don't know the year.
Chris and Paula Roberts were inducted into the Maine Press Association Hall of Fame. So a lot of notables.
Generational honor.
Generational honors here at the Lincoln County News.
Huge legacy. And if anybody wants to go to the service, it will be at 11 a.m. on Monday, February 17th at Strong Hancock Funeral Home in Damariscotta, with a reception to follow.
Well, hopefully be able to make that. And our condolences to the Roberts family.
So, Johnathan, you've got some road closures.
I do. I have an impending road closure. Hatchtown Bridge down in Bristol on the Lower Round Pond Road is going to be renovated and reconstructed. When I say that, it's going to be completely torn down, and it's going to be rebuilt. So reconstructed is not the right word.
Can you speak to how necessary this is?
So the I forget what is it? The Maine Department of Transportation, their highways and bridges section, they do an analysis of the infrastructure every 2 years, or all the bridges in the state get an inspection every 2 years. It's standard protocol. And there were several bridges in town prior to 2022 that were identified as needing to be redone. Now, when I spoke to Bristol Town Administrator Rachel Bizzaro, she said that when they got the report, it wasn't like close the bridges, they will collapse. It was more of a soft dictation. And so because it's expensive infrastructure is difficult, and it's inconvenient, and it's expensive.
Inconvenient, necessary.
Yes, totally. So they've been, over the last 2, 3, 4 years, have been replacing some of the bridges around town. And this is the latest. The residents of Bristol approved a $1.16 million dollar bond at a special town meeting January 29th, ahead of the annual town meeting, in order to give the construction company and the engineers time to order the materials so that they will arrive during the scope of the project, during the beginning and middle. So what that means is for about 5 months, beginning I think in June, The project starts in May, but beginning in June, Lower Round Pond Road will be impassable at that point. So from June until about November, that road will be closed. So I imagine Upper Round Pond Road will be seeing a lot more traffic. And so y'all, if you drive on the Upper Round Pond Road, take it slow, all right? Lower Round Pond Road, as you know, a bit wider, you can go a little bit faster. The Upper Round Pond Road has some turns. There isn't even a double yellow line down most of it. So
lots of deer.
Lots of deer, lots of trees, lots of turns and corners. So just a humble request from a humble reporter that we all take it a little slow going down there, because I assume and suspect there'll be a lot more traffic going down that way.
Yeah, it's funny how we have to do all this bridge work and road work in the summer when the ground's not frozen and when there's a million trillion people trying to get to South Bristol.
And then they also have to be cognizant of the alewives, both arriving and departing. And there's so many moving pieces, environmental concerns, traffic patterns that'll be adjusted that go into infrastructure maintenance. And it'll be tough when they have to redo like the Damerscott and Newcastle Bridge. That'll be, I'm not saying I don't know anything. I'm not saying that's on the horizon. I'm just saying in general that is a nexus of like real commerce. Hypothetically, that would be tough. Just saying. There might have been a sinkhole on the bridge not that long ago. But anyway. But in a little more fun news, someone in Nobleboro was celebrating something pretty fun, Molly.
Something very fun. You might look outside and not see many things living right now. But that is something of an illusion, because we have Maia Zewert from Nobleboro who he spotted 100 different bird species in 25 days in January.
Jeez.
Yeah, which as far as he knows, and he's a pretty well-connected birder, he has not heard of anybody doing this challenge before, like seeing 100 different species in 1 month in Lincoln County specifically, which is super exciting. It was like a personal goal for him. And he said something which I loved, which was that when you're a birder, a lot of the times you keep track of the birds you've seen. A lot of people have a life list, which is every bird species that they've ever seen in their life. And I've met some birders who have like hundreds and hundreds of birds on their life list. And that's a huge deal, but you also might keep track of the birds you see year to year or month to month. So he was saying that when the calendar switches over to a new year, he was really sad. Like, he's no restart. Birds. Yeah.
So there's like a week in January where he's like, that sucks. I'm not having a good time.
No, he said he woke up on New Year's Day and decided to bird as much as possible so he could like see more birds. And then since he moved to Nobleboro in 2022, which is when he moved to Lincoln County, he's like thought about embarking on this 100 bird challenge, but he didn't necessarily think it would be feasible because that's a lot of different bird species. We're not talking 100 individual birds. We're talking 100 different species of birds.
Yeesh.
Which I could not name 100 different. But this year...
You can't?
I don't think so. 100 different species of birds.
It's a required part of the education here in Lincoln County. You have to be able to...
I'm outing myself.
Yeah, that's really remarkable too. How many did he give a number of, what's the denominator of that? So he saw 100 bird species in Lincoln County out of, is there 101? Did he's like, so how many?
Oh, no, I should have asked him that. I mean, he leads free birding field trips through Midcoast Audubon. So if you want to find out, you should go on their website and book a field trip with them.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea of like how teeming with bird life Lincoln County is. So.
Well, it is fairly, it is a good environment for birding, and for an interesting reason, which is that we have a lot of different ecology zones here. We have like the Rocky Shore, some boreal forest type situation with all of the evergreens and spruce forest. And we also have like, I don't know the technical word, but like grassy areas and
we
plains.
have grass. Yeah.
But like, what's the ecosystem, like field-ish areas. But because of all those different habitats that we have within our relatively small county, there's a lot of places for birds to feel at home, different species of birds. So that helped him towards his goal. And then I also want to mention I thought it was really interesting that the reason it worked out this year is because there were a lot of birds hanging around that don't usually hang around. Like usually, if
What
you're
does
a
that
bird,
mean?
if you're a bird, a lot of species migrate south. And this year there were a couple like anomalous ones who the
Right.
rest of their family went south, but they were like, I have this bird feeder right here. It is so good. I'm going to stick around. And he has enough friends in the birding community that lots of people were like, oh, hey, Maia, I have this rare bird at my bird feeder. Do you want to come hang out and drink coffee and we'll see it together? So it's like all his friends helped him. And,
Oh.
yeah.
So wow, what a communal endeavor. My man was just sipping on some coffee, checking out birds and like going through. So did he mention a favorite find amongst his hundreds?
He did. There was a couple. I think my favorite story that he told was about a grouse, which we have a picture in our print edition of this game bird like charging through the snow, and there's snow like flying out behind it in its wake because it's running at the camera. And Mael, he's a great photographer. He took these photos. And the bird was super friendly, and he was like tipped off on where to find it. And he went there 2 times, didn't see anything. And then the 3rd time he got out of the car and this bird just charged him and like wouldn't leave him alone. And he has a camera that you need to be really far away to take a picture. So he had to run away from it to get a clear picture.
Wow. That's the contortion I'm imagining in order to capture that is pretty significant.
Yeah. And his 100th bird was his favorite bird of all, which is the dovekey, a little puffin cuff, a little
puffin cuff? What's a puffin cuff?
puffin cousin.
A little puffin cousin. Okay, well, I mean, birds have such strange names that like I don't even know what that means. You know, we're talking about like the gross. You know, we're talking about the gross, and then the black. Chickadee, which isn't that crazy. That sounds totally normal, but there are tons of birds' names that I just think. So that didn't sound weird at all. Cuff and puff.
I can't be spreading rumors. We don't have any.
Oh yeah, I saw 200 birds yesterday. Let me just rack that up for you.
Yes, so that was fun. Thanks for indulging me to talk about birds.
It was great. It was a great article that you wrote.
Thank you. And I want to talk a little bit about something decidedly less fun. Let's swing back in the other direction. PFAS.
PFAS.
Yeah. We got them in South Bristol and many other places.
Yes, we got them in South Bristol. But it appears that there is an end in sight for the PFAS issues. For those that don't know, South Bristol School for the last, I guess it'll be approaching 2 years in the spring. In 2023, water testing revealed elevated PFAS levels, and it was at the school. So the school's drinking water has been unsafe for consumption for 2 years, at least through testing. They've discerned that. And they've drilled a new well, and they're going to put in a filter for that well, not necessarily for PFAS, but for other elevated like radon and iron levels and so on. Not fun, not a fun thing, a necessary thing, but it's been really interesting to learn about. And so for our listeners, for those who don't know what PFAS are, they are also known as like forever chemicals. And those forever chemicals mean that they don't break down. They're synthetic chemicals that don't break down easily in the environment. And it takes an incredibly long time to break down. So they just hang around. They are carcinogens. They are not great for the human consumption, but they've been around since like the late 1940s or 30s. I forget exactly when they first started coming around, but PFAS is found in a ton of things, and most notably, they're found in like water repellent, like clothing. Sometimes in nonstick pans. I mean, the list is actually pretty extensive for what PFAS is found in.
Yeah. Lots of stuff that we use in our everyday lives.
Yes, a startling amount. PFAS. The lead paint of yesteryear, PFAS may be our chemical issue that we'll seek to remedy. So they're on their way to figuring that out. And I think the South Bristol Select Board member, Adam Rice, who's been spearheading the efforts to remedy the situation, said that he's very confident that by the start of the school year in 2025, in September, kids will be drinking out of the fountains again. They've just been bringing in bottled water. since. So
I'm sure they love that. Kids love their water bottles.
kids,
Sorry, not to make light of this
No,
very serious situation.
It's totally fine. I think that they are, people are excited both within and outside of the building.
Yes.
But so
New well.
Yeah, new well. And maybe in news that is slightly more fun and animal oriented, our reporter Piper Pavlich wrote about a horse sanctuary that's going to be moving to Alna from Mount Desert Island.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Some people might know Whistle Pig Farm, which is the best name. I don't know. I haven't asked her where it came from.
She has said that a whistle pig is a groundhog, and I'm not sure how that relates to horse.
Huh. Well, it's really fun. I love it.
It is. Whistle pig? That sounds great.
Yeah. They sold their Mount Desert Island property in September, and they're on their way to Alna to bring the animals here.
Can't wait. I wonder, can I go for a ride? Is that what that is?
Oh.
Is it a sanctuary, or can I
I think it's a sanctuary, but...
Yeah, I shouldn't be a part of a sanctuary
Sure
for horses. Be like, I want to ride that one.
And Piper also reported on a Dresden special election, January 31st, where Jeff Bickford was elected with 122 votes to fill a select board vacancy. And he was on the ballot with Chris Cope, who got 102 votes, Billy Joe Dupas with 19 votes, and there was one write-in.
It's really amazing to look at those numbers, because we're talking about, 244 voters overall and 20 vote difference between the first and the second place.
Yeah.
It is, don't let anyone ever tell you your vote doesn't matter, especially at the local level. I mean, you should always vote in your national elections, but it's so much more locally relevant to you to invest in paying attention to who's being, so.
Yeah. You can
vote.
see it.
You can see it. Yeah. 20. And a great example was not a few years ago, Bremen was going to pass an ordinance that would allow the sale of liquor again in the town. The vote was a tie. And when a vote like that ties, it defaults to the law that's in place already. So no sale of liquor in Bremen.
Yeah.
Does Bremen need it? I don't know. I grew up in Bremen, so. But it's just another example of like those numbers are really incredible.
Absolutely.
Just the same.
Yeah. And we have a quote from Jeff Bickford. He said, "I appreciate and I'm humbled by the support of Dresden residents in their selection of me to try to move the town forward."
That's well said. That's a great quote. Well, so elsewhere in the paper, we've taken a little bit of not a turn, but we've doubled our characters of the county. And when I say doubled, we've coupled. And this week was our first run at that. And Molly had the pleasure of sitting down with our first couple for the month of January. And for those that don't know, the month of January, we are doing...
February.
Dang. It's February. In February, excuse me, listeners. In the month of February, the month of love.
Time flies.
Time flies. It was just January a week ago. But for the month of February, the month of love, right, we will be doing couples of the county instead of characters of the county. And Molly led off with a lovely couple. What was it like? How was the interview? It was great, yeah.
So much fun. So I went to Pumpkin Vine Family Farm in Somerville to speak with Anna Rupchand and Kelly Payson Rupchand, who are the farmers who have owned that property since 2008. They are both highly educated farming, like agricultural, they just do, they're like multi-hyphenates.
Right.
They raise goats, but they also run these farmers markets that bring together community members in Somerville in a way that Somerville doesn't have too many ways to do. Every week or every 2 weeks, sometimes in the summer, people are at Pumpkin Vine petting the goats and seeing each other. And they orchestrated that very intentionally to bring the community together. Wow. They also have 2 kids, and Kelly Payson Rupchand wrote a book about the history of the property, which is on Hewitt Road and has been a big part of Somerville for quite a while. So it was great to hear about all they do, but also to hear about their relationship with each other apart from all that, because a lot of the times I'm on their farm to report a story about goat cheese.
A lot?
More than you might think. Because I report on Somerville, if listeners don't know, and Somerville, like I said, doesn't have too many like public gathering spaces. So I'm always looking for stories in Somerville, and I wind up at Pumpkin Vine quite a bit. And it was fun to be there specifically to speak with Annal and Kelly and hear about their love for each other and how they met, which was when they were studying different master's and doctoral degrees in Trinidad, and hear about their shared passion for farming, for agriculture, for animals, for their family, and how that's kept them in such a strong relationship for 20 years or more. Yeah.
It sounds like a really nurturing environment. Mm-hmm. And that they've sort of extended that to Somerville, too. Like creating that there. Wow, it sounds like the ripple effects of their love can be felt throughout the community.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, happy month of love, everybody.
Happy month of love, everybody. We're going to have couples coming at you for the next three
more weeks. Yep.
Just remembering how many weeks there are in February.
And if you have a suggestion for a character of the county or a couple of the county for us to talk to in the future, you can email info@lcnmu.com. Just putting it out there.
Let us know, but also let us know how to get a hold of your nominee. We've been getting a ton of nominations that have been a little hard to track down. If you're not in the phone book or don't have Facebook, give me an address, right? Or give us something to work with. Smoke signal, a boat, where they, just something.
Yes. And yeah. Thank you. So I want to hear about, we've got some new hairstyling options in Damariscotta you spoke with.
Yes, Damariscotta is welcoming a new barber at B&Co, a hair salon down on Water Street in Damariscotta. He moved to South Bristol in December. His name is Tyler Caskey. Lovely gentleman, got to meet him. And he said that he and his family come to the area. They have family around here and really loved it, and it reminded them of the place that they came from in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And so he's going to be there Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays with walk-ins possible on Saturdays. Brooke Watton, the co-owner of B&Co, said that she's excited to offer some barber services at the salon. She said, quote, "He's already fitting in really well. He's a very personable, likable guy. He's going to do really well with the kind of clientele we have at B&Co."
Nice.
So,
did you get your hair cut when you went to interview him?
No, but you know what's so funny is that when I walked in, because I knew a few of the people who, I know Brooke and I know a few of the people there. Brooke wasn't there, but I know some of them. And I walked in, and as I was interviewing Tyler, they asked, like, "Are you going to get your hair cut?" Which I actually have gotten a haircut like within the last couple of weeks. So I was like, oh.
Should I?
Do I need to? Do I need to go?
Is there something unsaid here?
Yeah. So, Tyler, wishing you all the best, bud. And we're looking forward to coming in and getting a haircut. Yeah, Tyler is also a third-generation barber.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wow. That's amazing. Good for him.
Pretty crazy.
Keeping it up.
Yeah.
So we've also got a one-woman play, which I think I want to hear about.
Yes.
I've been seeing her posters, and I've been really intrigued. So I was glad that you got to speak with her.
Yes, she is. Frances is a friend, and she, when she's not doing theater classes at Lincoln Theater, she sometimes is a barista down at Barn Door Bakery Cafe. I don't know if it's actually, it's a cafe down on Main Street in Damariscotta. And I like espresso. And so I'm in there, semi-regularly. And so I've known her for a little while. And my goodness, our interview, she is such a dynamic and vibrant individual. And she wrote a play about basically her 40s, the beginning of her 40s. She was a Broadway star. She was a part of a few performances that won Tony Awards, which are the equivalent of like the Oscars or the Emmys and so forth. She wrote a story about what it was like to find love. She met her husband. I think she just turned 40 or was like in her late 30s, just met her husband, and then have kids. And in that process of having kids and finding love, she also gained like 100 pounds. And so the play Frances Floats is about sort of like her relationship with her body and how dynamic like happiness has been for her. And she's written this play. She's the only actor in the play, and she is directing it. Like, we interviewed, and she was so funny. She was like, I have to go to rehearsal after this. I'm like, with who? it's just you, right? She's like, yeah. I was like, do you film yourself and like watch it back? She's like, no, I just run through the motions. So
gotta be on time for that.
Yeah, right. So she is this Saturday, actually. Well, so when this podcast airs, it'll be past it. But Frances's play is returning to the Lincoln Theater this Saturday for a matinee and for a later show. And part of its return is due to the success of the first showing in September, which went very well, got a lot of praise. And she's got, now she's taken the show to New York for a couple of performances. Portland, I think that she'll be playing at the Waldo in April. So,
wow.
She really was a treat to interview. And, I think that she wrote this just, she said she sees this as an opportunity to remind people that they are enough just as they are. Mm-hmm. So if y'all are listening and want to see Frances, want to go to New York City. They're playing at 54 Below. And then in Portland, they're playing at the Good Theater, which is in July. And if you want to see her perform in Lincoln County, check out the Waldo Theater's page, because she'll be performing in April. So
excellent. I'm glad that she's doing another run. Well, many more.
Yeah, seriously.
That's awesome.
So who's Chunk?
I'm so glad you asked. We have a story in this week's edition by Paula Roberts, who usually writes about sports for us, but she is very versatile. And this week she wrote about Chunk, who is a Maine Coon cat who was born in the wild and rescued by Shauna Weimer and her daughter Brooke, who live in Union. And the thing that's notable about Chunk is that he's a great swimmer, and he loves to take a bath every day. He takes a shower.
He takes a shower every day?
Sometimes he takes a shower, sometimes he takes a bath. He's versatile. And I just want to encourage our listeners to check out this story, because it's just the pictures. I can't say it enough.
It sounds incredible. I really want to know why Chunk was named Chunk. Mm-hmm. Like, does Chunk come back with like a chunk of an animal every day, like from his exploits in the water?
Well, he's like grown up in comfort. He was rescued when he was 6 weeks old. He was found in a wood pile, but then he was like raised obviously in the lap of luxury, taking a shower every day. And his love of water started when he fell into a pond, and he was like, wait a minute. Cats stereotypically not the biggest fans of water. So.
Well, Chunk, breaking stereotypes and norms and pushing boundaries for felines everywhere.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, I'll be sure to check that out as well.
So shall we hear a bit about the upcoming high school basketball season?
I think it's time to hear about the upcoming basketball season.
Awesome.
All right, we'll turn the mic over to you guys.
I'm Mick LeBel, sports reporter for the Lincoln County News, here with Lucas McNelly, who's with Maine Basketball Rankings.com.
In case your Google is broken.
Good gracious.
All right, we're off to a good start. Right. So we're here to preview the tournament, even though we should qualify this by saying we're recording this on Friday afternoon, and we were supposed to know. Everything was supposed to be crystal clear by now, but it snowed and most of Thursday's schedule got pushed to today. So there's still a little bit of uncertainty in who is playing who and who is and is not in the tournament. So if we get that all wrong, blame Maia.
Yeah, okay. So, yes, because I'm here too, helping you guys out and keeping you on time. Because we cannot talk about basketball for 2 hours on a Friday.
I don't see why not.
Because people will look at the time on this podcast and be like, absolutely not.
They will look at the time on the podcast and go, this is a wealth of information and discussion, and this requires a deep dive. And I bet this is definitely awesome if it's this long.
Except for the fact that I absolutely know we're going to go off track like 15 minutes in. Come on.
We're diving deep.
If I see a podcast and it's like 10 minutes long, I'm like, why even bother? What's the point? So you show me it's like 2 hours. I'm like, well, they really got into it.
There's got to be a happy medium. But before we launch directly into the tournament, we should probably look back on the predictions you guys made at the start of the year. Which is...
Did we write them down?
We did not, but we talked about them right before I hit record, so I think you recall some of them.
Okay.
One of which was 1,000-point scorers. The people who were close were Lincoln Academy's Miriam Delisle, and then Madomic's Gabe Lash and Katana Williamson. So...
Yeah, the first two you mentioned, they were long shots, and we recognized that. Each of Gabe Lash and Miriam Delisle, who's with Lincoln Academy, Gabe Lash, boys team, Madomic. Each of them were at about 550 to 600. So they really need to have enormous numbers. Both of them had small numbers their freshman year. And we were just talking about that. You really need to put all 4 years into it to get to 1,000. So unfortunately, they'll probably fall short. Each of them, it looks like, are around the 800 mark. Barring going
would take
to
a lot.
40 points a game or something heading down the stretch here. Having said that, both of them have had really good seasons. Each of them are up over 200 points in the 250 to 300 range already.
I think it's worth as a testament to how good Gabe Lash's season has been and last couple seasons is I did a straw poll like 2 weeks ago for Mr. Basketball, and he finished second in that. So to do that and not score 1,000 points, you have to do a lot of other stuff and do it very, very well. And
the Madomic team, boys team as a whole, is doing it very, very well. I mean, I think part of the reason that Gabe is getting close but won't quite make it is because there are too many really, really, really good players on that team. It seems like every week there's a different leading scorer in like the game recaps. So
very much so. Yeah. So that there's a lot of dogs to feed. And if you look at Katana's situation on the flip side of that is she was the big dog and she was fed well and delivered well, I might add, but definitely she, is the entire feature of their offense. Well, Chloe Fox in her inside game, but Miriam is similar to that on Lincoln Academy. That's why I thought she had an opportunity because she is the big dog. Scores the majority of their points, and if she doesn't, they're in trouble. We'll get into that a little bit here in a second. The other prediction, maybe that we could
we do need to touch on the one person who did make it to 1,000 points, which is Katana Williamson,
and is now the Madomic girls' all-time leading scorer.
I don't think ever. I don't want to say we've never done it, but I cannot recall a case in which we singled out one person for features on back-to-back issues of the newspaper. And Katana was on the front for hitting her 1,000th point. Great, awesome, amazing. She was on the front the very next week for becoming the all-time leading scorer. So.
I think my joke was it's really hard to get on the front page of the paper 2 weeks in a row without like killing someone.
Yes, this is absolutely true.
Well, she did kill her opponent.
She did do that.
Although I will say,
and maybe Lincoln's season.
Yes, correct.
Well, the Lincoln game was where Katana, broke that record, and that was just a fun game to watch because
she broke it on the game winner.
She broke it on the game winner, but you could see the moment in the third quarter. I haven't been to a lot of Lincoln girls games over the past 4 years, but you could see the moment in which Miriam Delisle was like, okay, we're done with this, and like took it personally and just went off. And I was like, oh, dang, she's amazing. So I'm bummed she's not going to make it, but she had a very good run.
Yeah. And a great response from Katana after Miriam went on that run.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of the things that makes Katana a special player.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Yep. She rises to the moments.
Yeah.
So
She's probably going to be a Miss Basketball semifinalist, I would assume.
I would hope so.
I think she'll be a semifinalist. Maybe Gabe will be a finalist. Mr. Basketball is a thing for if you're not following the whole state. Mr. and Miss Basketball are pretty much a wrap. It's going to be Ella Pelletier and Jameer Rose from Noble and Oxford Hills. And everyone's just sort of playing for second place. But there's a lot of support for Gabe Lash for one of those other two finalist spots.
Awesome. But yes, Mick, as we were talking about our other predictions, you guys had some tourney thoughts about who would be making it, where they would be going through. So
we were correct on the Wiscasset girls not making it.
You were correct on that.
Let's touch on those real quick. Wiscasset girls, they did break the streak.
This is true.
122 games going back to December of 2016. They pulled off a victory on Islesboro Island, 24-21.
And you got to go to that.
I did get to
You
go
picked
to
the right game to go on the boat.
It was awesome. Since then, they've had a couple of close games, actually, under...
and some drama.
Yes, and some drama. And but they've finished out the season strong, and it's too bad they didn't win another one. Came close. They were winning by 10 in Searsport and at halftime and lost that one by a couple points. We were right on that prediction. The program is getting stronger, but they got a long way to go. But, one step at a time. The other predictions we had that would not make the tournament were the Booth Bay boys, who came quite
Very close.
Yeah,
Pretty
they
close.
did come close. And they played awesome the last game of the year. I saw them playing Lisbon. Granted, Lisbon is Lisbon.
Yeah.
But they were having a lot of fun, and they were confident, and the young guys were stepping it up. So their future's kind of bright. They do lose quite a few seniors that were impact players. They do have a crop of young players coming up, but I think it's going to be a couple of years for Booth Bay boys before they get back into the tournament. Booth Bay girls...
I think we thought they were going
drama.
to make it.
We thought they were. They had two girls go out with knee injuries, season-ending injuries.
Including one that you were like very excited about.
I was very excited about Eleanor Irwin. Great player. She went down, I believe, in the final preseason game. And she would have been a 15, to 20 point scorer per game for them as a freshman. So, that's a big loss. Took a little while for them to get their mojo back. And Tatum French is a great player. She's a junior. She'll be back next year. She was racking up over 20 points a game the last 3, 4, 5 games. So she's a player. She just needs a supporting cast. There are a lot of young players. Arabella Hodgton's a freshman. She'll be good. So their future is pretty bright if they get Eleanor Irwin back next year healthy. So they'll have a better shot. Anna Gosselin's the other player that went out with a knee injury, and that was maybe maybe 5th or 6th game of the season.
Oof.
And then they had another starter that left the team due to disciplinary matters. So they lost 3 starters, for at least half the season, one of them for the whole season. So that's hard to overcome when you don't have a deep team to begin with.
Right.
I think they ended the year with 8 players on their varsity roster.
Oh, yeah, that's...
Yeah, and they had a couple really good freshmen that chose track and field over basketball, unfortunately, much to the dismay of Coach Bruce Orn.
It's a criminal act.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens next year. They'll be close, but tough year for them this year. I think they went 5-13.
Yeah. So they're on to spring sports.
Yes. But now let's talk about the people who we will be seeing at some tourney sites over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, let's do the Wiscasset boys first because everybody else is in the same bracket.
Yes.
So the Wiscasset boys, they're going to be the 6th seed in D South. Pretty good year from them. I think the problem is they're going to get Telstar in the first round, and Telstar just beat them 71-33.
Ooh.
Very recently.
Yeah.
So that's not the draw you want.
However, last year Oceanside beat Belfast by 89 points. And
Yeah,
then this
88
year,
points, and then Belfast beat them this year, but with different players.
I mean,
is the problem there.
Similar.
Although there is a story where back in the 90s, Morse beat Madomic by 50, and then Madomic beat them in the rematch later in the year, and that was a pretty big deal. And I've completely forgotten the name of the business that put the score up on their sign and left it there for weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it's Madomic. A lot of local support, and that had to be amazing bragging rights too. So Telstar, if Wiscasset beats Telstar, what's the rest of that bracket look like right now?
If Wiscasset beats Telstar, first I have to get into the right window on my computer, and they would be as the 6th seed. They would not be in Valley's region. Valley's half of the bracket because Valley is awesome. I mean, we saw them against Wiscasset earlier this year, and they're really, really good. They're, I would think, a heavy favorite. They're going to be a heavy favorite there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other team that was in the top 3, I could be wrong. I think it's St. Doms.
It's St. Doms. St. Doms is also really good.
I actually went to St. Doms to see Booth Bay boys play them, and they're a good team. They're big, very big, which could cause problems for Wiscasset.
So it's going to be a tough draw.
Yeah. I think regardless. Booth Bay got beat up pretty bad by St. Tom's. I think it was 30 points probably.
Yeah. But 2 straight years in the tournament for Wiscasset is not nothing.
No.
Yeah.
Considering where they came from.
Exactly. And last year they upset Buckfield in the first round. So they could
shock the world.
Feed off of that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just talking a little bit about their team. They are quite inconsistent. I've seen them play great. I've seen them play not very good. But they have a young player, Julian King. He's been a nice surprise for their team. He's been one of their leading scorers the last 3 or 4 games. Javar Garrix is a senior, fun guy to watch. He's a leader, always has a smile on his face. Great team player. And Landon Shirey is probably the most intriguing player on their roster. A slim guy. But man, he can shoot. He's got a great shooting stroke. He can get a little bit emotional in the game and get
he gets
thrown
a little
off.
heat checky.
Yeah. He if he can check that, and Coach Roy, I think, has done a really good job mentoring him and some of the other young guys on the team. But Shirey's a sophomore. He could put up 30 a game, if he's on, and he can put up 8, if he's not.
If he could get hot, if they're going to beat Telstar, he's got to get hot.
Yeah.
But maybe don't tell him that ahead of time, because then he might
get in his head.
He might get in his head and he might take 43s.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he's not afraid to shoot. He definitely puts a lot of shots up. They got a couple other players that they really need to get some production out of. Spencer Pinkham, Alex Richard. I've seen them have good shooting games. They've been missing in action a couple games. I'm not sure, why the inconsistency this season, but last year I think they had even more of an impact before Shirey came on the stage. So maybe that's part of it. Shirey's taking the ball a bit more. I think it really comes down to Shirey having a big game, having them play good defense. Sometimes their defense isn't quite there. And we're going to talk about some great defensive teams here in a minute, but they're suspect, and that could bite them also.
Right. All right, so let's move on to B South, which is where everybody else is.
And I want to start with Lincoln Girls.
Okay.
I think is probably the best
Lincoln girls are maybe in the tournament.
Right.
We will find out in a couple hours. They can either finish 7th, 9th, or 11th.
So they have options.
Yeah, they have options, and the top 10 get in.
Yeah.
So they would, if they finish like 7 through 11 is a mess. So we have no idea. There's like anybody could finish anywhere in there, really. So we have no idea who their prelim opponent's going to be. If they do get in, they need to win, or they need Lake Region's help points to fall apart to stay in the tournament.
This is the thing about heel points for me. Like, your entire placement in the tournament could depend on whether or not one player from like one team has a cold, as we saw with the Madomic girls. And
Lincoln Academy's tournament life could hinge on whether or not Class D Wayne Fleet beats Class D St. Dom's.
Yes.
That could be determine whether or not Lincoln Academy gets in the tournament.
Which is absolutely bonkers
It's
to me.
awesome.
Yeah.
It is bonkers. However, they had more than enough opportunity to punch their ticket.
I was going to say, talk us through the team. Like,
well,
what?
we talked about this in our preview, was that this was one of those kind of wild card teams that could have a really good year. They could be on the bubble. And here we are. They rely heavily on Miriam Delisle to score. And
they've had a lot of injuries down the stretch,
right? They've had a lot of injuries down the stretch and illnesses. They're missing Maggie Thompson right now. And they just have trouble getting secondary scoring. Very fast, very quick, not very big.
Right.
So that's the other point is, they can get outmatched. Yeah, very swift. And when they're on, they're on. But when they're off and Miriam's not scoring, they really struggle. And they're a small team. So if they play a big opponent that figures that out and really grinds them on the inside, they're in trouble.
Right. So for them, if they are the 7 or the 9, that either puts them in Madomic's side of the bracket or the other side of the bracket. So I think for them, if I'm Lincoln Academy, I want to be on Madomic's side of the bracket because for some reason I play a lot better against Madomic than I do against anybody else.
As we saw in that game, like just a couple of weeks ago, where Katana broke the all-time scoring record, the lead was switching back and forth third and fourth quarter. So, I would agree.
There's a case for Lincoln if they can get in, if they get the 7, they beat Erskine tonight, which is going to be a tall order, then they could give Madomic a run for their money in a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
They could.
Which
Having
would be interesting.
said that, so down the stretch, we did mention that they stumbled a bit. They lost 6 in a row. That's tough. They were 7-3 and they dropped to 7-9. They finished. Well, they're not finished yet.
No, they
beat MCI the other night soundly and played very well. Desperate.
But MCI is not good.
No.
So there's that.
Exactly. So, they'll need a big game against Erskine, I think.
Yeah, and Erskine's very good. So their fans don't behave at all, but they're very good.
Jumping ship to the Lincoln boys.
Okay.
How are they looking, Lucas?
So they looked pretty good. They went and beat Spruce, which was a big win for them. And then they lost to Belfast, which was perplexing.
Yep.
But it was at Belfast, and Belfast has had a pretty good week. So, you can make an argument for that. They're going to be the 4 seed. They're in the 4-5. So they're in that 4-5 game. They're either going to be playing Oceanside or Yarmouth.
Okay.
Both of which are good teams. I think they could probably beat both of them. But it's all centers around how well does Terry Welly play down low?
Yep.
And how well do the Hunt brothers play? And they're, I think, the most consistent thing about Lincoln is that you're going to get something pretty good from the Hunt brothers.
You're going to get great defense.
You're going to get very good defense. They play well together.
Whole team, actually. So the defense is what keeps them in just about every game. The offense is what keeps them out of a few games. And even Coach Ryan Ball would say the same thing. He was worried heading into this season, where his scoring was going to come from consistently, especially, and we've seen that. Lately, it's been the Hunt brothers. Last game, EJ had 25 and Drew had 20.
Yeah, their offense is really improved.
That's a pretty lethal combination right there.
Is. So, they're on the rise right now. And, whether Chase Coffin and some of their other role players can put up numbers is the question.
Right.
They've definitely been hot and cold. Chase Coffin in particular, he's had some big games. He's had some games where he's not really on the score sheet. Mm-hmm. But they're deep. They hustle and then they come off and, fresh legs go out there and drive the opponent nuts on defense. So,
and they were probably the team this year that gave Madomic I wouldn't call it a scare, but they were the one team that hung with them past halftime this year. And then Madomic sort of shut the door and went, "Oh, right,
yes,
we should start playing now." But everybody else, Madomic's none of their games have been in doubt in this late in the second quarter, even.
So yeah, it'll come down to if they can score.
Yeah. But being in the 4-5 game, they could get Madomic in a semifinal.
Ooh.
So we could get that. They're locked in at the 4 seed. So, and then it's just a question of, do they want Oceanside or do they want Yarmouth?
And they beat Oceanside.
Yeah, I think so.
Once.
When Zeb Foster was
Without Zeb
out.
Foster.
Yeah,
Great point. That's right. Yeah, Zeb Foster was not in that game.
And Zeb Foster is very good.
Zeb Foster is very good.
But they did blow them out.
They did blow them out. And then in the earlier game, Zeb Foster won on a buzzer beater. So
that's right.
An Oceanside Lincoln quarterfinal could be a very good game. But Yarmouth is also a good team. So I think they're going to have their work cut out for them in their quarterfinal no matter what.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Our final school to profile. We got. Should we start with the Madomic girls, save the Madomic boys for the closer?
Yeah, let's start with the Madomic girls.
All right. So how are they looking?
Katana Williamson and friends.
Yes. My favorite band.
Katana.
And Fox.
Yeah.
Fox
and Chloe Fox has had a really good year. She's got to be averaging 15 rebounds a game in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And she's scoring and she's blocking shots and she seems to get hurt once a game. But then she's fine, and like you can see, one thing I noticed in the Oceanside game, which was one of the ugliest basketball games you'll see outside of Class D, was and not in a derogatory towards anyone. It was like, no, everyone's playing badly.
Yeah.
People are sick. Burn the tape. Let's just get out of here alive. But one thing I noticed that struck me about Chloe Fox in that game is you could see the experience of being a goalie.
Yes.
And how she would go get rebounds. That like being used to being able to go and grab the ball in traffic and jump up and pull it in a way that you don't really see a lot in girls basketball, where sometimes they're just all standing and reaching up high.
Yeah.
And seeing who has the longest arms.
Yeah.
But
Which would still be Chloe.
It would still be Chloe, and she could do that, but she's able to go and get rebounds that she wasn't getting earlier in the year and she wasn't getting last year. And that's, if she plays well, they're very hard to beat.
Yeah.
And her energy.
Her energy is really great.
Part of their team mojo, I think, is her fire. So if she's fiery and
and I think if Audrey Jackson plays well, they're almost impossible to beat. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key for them, because you know what you're going to get from Katana. You're going to get 25 points. You're going to get 2 or 3 steals. You're going to get some assists. She's going to do a little bit of everything.
She will be everywhere.
She's got to bring the ball up the court.
Yeah, but it's like with Chase Coffin, if Audrey Jackson gives you 10 points and 6 rebounds, and blocks a shot, plays some defense, then that's just so huge for them. As if nothing else, it's the points, but it's someone else you have to worry about. So you can't sell out defensively on Katana. If those players, Anna Reed, people like that, if they can get you something extra, then that's going to be the key.
I do want to talk about Anna Reed very briefly, because Mick, I believe at the beginning of the season, if not on the podcast, but like just in conversation, you were like, good freshman. Like Madomic has a good freshman. And I saw her play at the Madomic Lincoln game, and it was like, oh, you're like Katana freshman year. You're a little bit everywhere. You can see the little bit of like freshman in the varsity role, but I'm very excited to watch her over the next few years.
Very similar size, similar build, similar ball handling skills. And I think when she's playing confidently, Anna Reed does take the ball to the hoop. Mm-hmm. Early on, she was a little tentative, like most freshmen are. And yeah, I think she's really come on here in the second half. And, that's one of my keys for them to advance and continue advancing is definitely her role on the team. I do have questions with this team. And I think we raised these also in the preview, is they're not as deep as, say, last year's team was.
Right.
And you mentioned Jackson and needing more from her or something from her if they're going to advance. And I think Claudia Feely is another player that she can be a little bit hit or miss.
She's been hurt.
Yeah, she's been hurt a lot. Not even sure what her status is. I know
she was back for Oceanside.
She was, okay.
And
she's a big player.
Lily Christ is a force down low.
She is. So they have 3 players with good size that play a physical game under the basket. And, they'll need either Lily or Claudia to supplement what Chloe brings, because Chloe's not going to play all the minutes. She's not going to be in all 32. She gets a lot of fouls and she gets some foul trouble.
She gets hurt.
She does. But she throws her body around.
So the thing with the Madonic girls is, in theory, they can win this region. I think Biddeford might be the best team in the region, and they're the 4 seed. They've already beaten Spruce this year, who's the 1 seed. They're going to get Oceanside in a semifinal if everything goes according to plan. And they've had a lot of trouble beating Oceanside, even, taking the Bailey Breen of it all out. Even when Madomic is the better team, and I think they're the better team, it's something mental. It's a mental block that they have to overcome to beat Oceanside. They got blown out earlier in the year. They lost by 3, which was really 6. At Oceanside in that really terrible game, but they had like a 6-8 point lead in that game in the second half and should have won it. So they're going to get as far as the gray matter inside their head lets them get, I think.
Now, we didn't start off with this. How locked in are they with their seeding? I know they have Camden tonight, but what's it looking like?
Are either the 2 or the 3.
Okay.
I think it is a Madomic win or an Oceanside loss would give them the 2 seed.
Gotcha.
So, but really 2 or 3, not that much of a difference. They should be able to handle whoever they get in a quarterfinal pretty handily. So it's going to be, what color uniforms are they wearing against Oceanside in the semifinals?
Gotcha.
I think is going to be the big question there.
I thought it was interesting that the majority of the Oceanside team was at the Madomic Lincoln Academy game, watching very closely.
And Oceanside does have an injury.
They do their homework.
Renee Ripley broke her finger. And she missed the game at Oceanside, but I think it's a non-shooting hand, so I would assume they're going to figure out a way to get her on the floor for the tournament. But she's really good.
Oh, yeah.
And does a lot, is the reason that a lot of what they do works. Her and Hoos in combination.
Yeah.
So that's an even more reason why they should have won that game at Oceanside. Yeah, but I mean, they could win this region, and they could absolutely win this region. And then up in the north, they would be probably, it might be Caribou or Ellsworth or someone like that to come out of the north. Erskine's the 2 seed, I think.
Oh, wow.
So, and they've already beaten Erskine. So it's not out of the question that they can make a very deep run. Caribou is going to be really good, though, I think.
Which brings us to our final team.
Yes. The Wiscasset girls.
Yes. No. Out of curiosity, where is Madomic in seeding?
They are number 1 in the power rankings.
Shocking.
In the entire state. They are the 1 seed. They are the 1 seed, even if they lose to Camden tonight, because York is done, and they have a considerable lead on York in the Hill points, and York went undefeated. So, which tells you a lot. They have some fun numbers for you. They are 4th in the state in scoring differential, which is points scored versus points allowed at 497, which is 29.2 points a game.
And that's without running it up.
That's without running it up on anybody.
In, all of his young players, and he makes sure that his
and the teams above them
aren't getting 40 in a game.
The teams that are ahead of them are all in Class C or D.
Wow.
So they are 6th in the state in scoring defense at 37.4 points a game allowed. And again, all of the teams above them are in Class C and D. So Yeah, I think it's the best defense in the state.
Having seen the Madomic Lincoln boys game, I would agree.
Yeah.
Holy jeezum.
Were you at the Belfast game?
I was not.
You were. So they played Belfast, and Belfast is a little feisty this year. But, no one expected Belfast to win that game. It was something like 7-5, 10-7, something like that. And then Madomic just took their souls from them. and Belfast did not make a basket for 19 minutes.
I saw something similar against Camden Hills.
Yeah. They can just, when they
first quarter,
when they lock in defensively, good night.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to make a good tournament run. I think Gabe Lash is the best defensive player in the state. Mm-hmm. He can guard, as we've seen all year, he can guard 1 to 5 on the other team. And a lot of times the formula for Madomic is really simple. It's we're going to put Gabe on the other team's best player. And so that guy's not going to score. Mm-hmm. And then Mason Wen can guard a lot of people. He would be a lot of teams' best defender.
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed.
And Rocco DePatsy can handle whoever the other team's big is.
Yeah.
And then you've got all these pesky guards flying around. Just like you've got these 3 big guys, and then you've got these pesky Christian Schumann, Luke Cheeseman, these like feisty
Dosty,
little guards.
Yeah.
Dosty, who run around and
deep
just
too.
pester the ever living life out of you.
Yeah.
And they can all score.
Yeah.
And they rotate them in and out.
Yeah. And they're always
They're fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the biggest piece that came to their team was Rocco DePatsy.
Mm-hmm. He's exactly what they needed.
It was.
Yeah.
I went to summer ball up at Coney, and I saw him. I'm like, who the heck is that guy?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, that's not Gabe Lash. That's 23. That's not 22. And it's just the final piece because now, like you said, Gabe doesn't need to play that role. He can be the top defender on the other team's best player.
Yeah, they can put him on. They can put him on a Jace Bessie. They can put him on a Zeb Foster.
Yeah.
They can put him on a point guard. They could put him on the other team's 4.
Yeah.
Their wing, whoever it is, then they can just do that. And there's a lot of games where they haven't even needed to do that. They just we'll just play a straight up defense.
Yeah.
And then and they'll just put him in the middle of a zone or something.
Yeah. So
And just have him
Rocco's
pester
that
people.
big guy holding down the fort.
Yeah.
And he's strong. He's athletic. He can score. He can shoot from outside. I've seen him hit 3-pointers.
He's hit a couple 3-pointers.
He has.
It's more fun when he's shooting that 3-pointer. You want to look immediately at Nick.
Yes.
DePatsy, because his reaction is the oh my, and then all right, it went in. Great.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of that. It's always entertaining. But yeah, they're the favorites in this region. They're the favorites in the state. And I don't think that's just us saying that. That seems to be the consensus.
I haven't seen them have an off game.
I haven't seen that either.
Well, that's because there are too many pieces that would have to have an off game for the team to have an off night.
They had a little bit of trouble with Spruce Mountain. That was Gabe was in foul trouble in that game.
Okay.
And Spruce Mountain's very good.
Yep.
And that was a game where there was a flop technical that was like a 7-point possession that really, I didn't determine the game, but it ended the game. Mm-hmm. But Spruce is going to be the 3, I think. They're feisty, but the issue with them is they have really, really, really struggled in the tournament the last several years. Part of that was because they would play a mostly Class C schedule. And so when they got to the tournament, they were like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And they have gone to great lengths to play a much harder schedule this year and play a lot more Class B opponents and I think they play some Class A guys teams in like preseason games and stuff like that. So it's going to be one of the questions of that bracket is going to be how does Spruce Mountain do in even the quarterfinals? But they're a feisty team and they've got a lot of talent. And then York, I haven't seen York. They played Lincoln. They beat Lincoln early, but that was really early in the season. So I'm not really sure how much weight to put in that game. Yeah. So they went undefeated. They played a softer schedule than they might have played the easiest schedule in the region, actually. So there's that. It's hard to go undefeated and not be in play for the 1 seed when the other team still has games left to play. Right. Which will tell you a lot about their schedule. Yeah. So they played the 10th. No, that's their defense. They played the 20th easiest schedule in Class B. So it's a bit of a question of have they been tested or are they just beating everybody that they should beat?
Yeah.
So I have a question. Do you think it's advantageous for Madomic to have a game tonight, kind of really late season
With a
before
good
heading
team.
into playoffs?
Yeah, and a good
With Camden Hills.
a good Camden team who has a really good player in Nolan Ames.
Yeah.
And Nolan Ames is probably the one guy this year who's been able to score on them.
Yeah, what do you think is going to give us a score prediction for tonight? And is Nick going to keep starters in? What's he going to do heading into playoff time?
I would think his focus is going to be you want everybody to be
Undefeated.
sharp.
Yeah.
You know, they're obviously going to try to win the game. They're favored by 21.
21, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to, it would be a surprise if they lost the game.
Right.
Camden Hills has only outscored their opponents this year by 38 points, but it's a Class A team.
Yeah,
They're feisty. They
tough schedule.
could give them some trouble, but they should win this. And you just want the last game of the season like this. You've also got a week off
Yeah.
Is that that's
because you don't have
getting at.
because you don't have a prelim.
Yeah, they
so
won't
what
have
they'll
prelim.
do is they'll schedule somebody else in exhibition game. They'll probably find a AA school and play them in an exhibition game in the off week to stay sharp.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but I think, I think they would obviously want to go undefeated. They would hope to not lose any more games the rest of the way.
I like it.
I
Good
think,
game plan.
why not? I think if you're Madomic, I think what you want to have happen is I think you want Oceanside to go to 6.
Yeah.
And I think because Oceanside could give York trouble. I could see Oceanside beating York and taking care of them for you, which would be very nice of them. And and then it's a question of Caribou. If you get Caribou or whoever comes out of the north in a gold ball game, and I probably shouldn't say this on a microphone, but I watched some of the Caribou Old Town game, and I didn't see a lot of defense from Caribou. It was a lot of people standing around, not doing very much.
And Madomic would pick that apart.
That's what I kind of felt like. I kind of felt like when I was watching the Western Conference Finals last year and watching Luka just guard nobody and thinking, that's not going to work in the next round, like at all. They're just going to hunt that. And, so I could see that. I could see them, Caribou, having some trouble, but Caribou's been to the gold, have won 2 gold balls in the last 5 years. So.
Including one of the best basketball games of all time.
Yeah.
I'm going to just.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're a Madomic person, you're very hopeful that this is the year. It's been since 1980. I was alive for that.
I was not.
Barely. And they've gotten really close a number of times. Painstakingly close at least once. And, if you tell someone, they haven't won it since 1980, and people will look at you and go, what?
Right.
Really? Because they're a top 4 seed every year for the last 15, 20 years. You're like, oh, well, they're in the regional final every other year. One of those years it must have worked out. And I will go to my grave thinking they should have beaten Cape. And I think they would have beaten, I think they would have won the title Yarmouth won. The McKenney senior year.
Yeah,
I think
because
they would have won that year.
Bickmore went down.
Yep. If Bickmore doesn't tear his ACL or whatever it was, I think they win that whole thing.
Absolutely.
I think they were the best team in Class B that year. And
they've been healthy this year.
They've been very healthy this year.
I just thought of that. I can't think of anyone missing a game for them this year.
Well, Gabe got a bloody nose against Oceanside, and Mason hurt his knee. Okay. I haven't heard anything. No one seemed that concerned with it after the game. So hopefully he's okay, knock on wood, but I won't knock on this table because the sound feedback.
Thank you.
But I mean,
they've been super healthy.
There's every reason to believe they can win the whole thing.
Yeah. They're deep. Their defense is great. Great coach.
They've got all the pieces you need to win this. They'll have the best player in every game they play. That's always helpful. They'll have the best defense in every game they play. And
variety of scorers.
They've got a variety of scorers. And then if the shot's not there, the defense should be able to keep them in the game.
Yes. Right. I can't imagine them not being within 5 points, even if they fall behind.
And they're not reliant on anybody.
Right.
Like even, they're reliant on Gable Ash to do a lot of the little things, but they don't need him to score 25 points. And they're almost better if he doesn't score 25 points, because then that means everybody else is scoring. But if Christian Schumann goes 0 for 6 from 3 some night, it's not the end of the world for them. They have other pieces that can pick up the slack.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, that kind of wraps up the tourney look, but
That's my Madamic rant that people are getting tired of.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him go. I've heard this many a time, including the thing about the Madamic Cape game, which, yowza.
That was, you ask anybody in Midcoast Bay, they will tell you that was one of the most scarring basketball experiences of their lives. Unless they're, I guess, probably Lincoln fans just sitting there going, this is great. But, oh my goodness.
Awful. Yeah.
Terrible.
Which is also why you were so excited when Caribou beat Cape in 2019.
Yeah.
Payback. But yeah, I mean, we still have, again, we're recording this Friday at 1:00. So we still have, Madamic has a doubleheader with Camden. I'm excited for that just because I haven't gotten to get to a lot of games. Oh, yeah.
We should probably leave now.
Yeah.
For that. It's in 4 hours.
Start camping out. It'll be great.
It's going to be, I think the place is going to be absolutely madness tonight.
Yes.
So.
And I am psyched. But we wish all the local teams luck in the tournament. We'll have coverage weekly online. Lucas will be doing live stats for MaineBasketballRankings.com. He'll also not be here at LCN that week because he's just going to go and...
That was a condition of my employment.
Yes.
I said, just so you know, I'm not going to be here that week.
I cannot be here in February.
You can schedule me. You can expect me to show up, but it's not going to happen.
Just make sure that PTO is approved and cleared.
And John Roberts, the publisher, goes, yeah, I know that already. So.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we'll have a little bit more of a preview in the February 13 edition, just once all these final variables get settled. But guys, thanks for the chat.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
This is one of my favorite times of year.
Same.
It's the greatest time of year. I'm so tired. You have no idea how tired I am.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Broadsheet, a podcast by the Lincoln County News. Production support is provided by Tyler Davis of Tyality Productions. Theme music by Stu Mahan and Sherwood Olin.
Have a question or a suggestion? Email us at info@lcnme.com. And if you haven't already, please be sure to rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen.
This has been a Lincoln County Publishing Company production.